coming up on the Get Lean, Eat Clean podcast, why is it superior to just, lifting weights?
Because you have variable capacity. So what I discovered in my bone density research is you can handle X amount of weight, like let's say chest press type activity.
Mm-hmm.
You can handle X amount of weight when it's right on your chest.
Right.
When you're pushing away from yourself, when you're just short of full extension, not at full extension, just short of full extension,
Okay.
you can handle 7 times the amount of force. So no matter what you're doing, if you're not using variable resistance, you're not stimulating hardly anything at all.
Hello, and welcome to the Get Lean, Eat Clean podcast. I'm Brian Grin, and I'm here to give you actionable tips to get your body back to what it once was 5, 10, even 15 years ago. Each week, I'll give you an in-depth interview with a health expert from around the world to cut through the fluff and get you long-term sustainable results. In this episode, I interviewed Dr. Jaquish. He's the inventor of bone density building medical device BioDensity, and he also invented what's called the X3. It's a technology that's proven to develop muscle much faster than conventional weightlifting, all with the lowest risk of joint injury. So we talk all about the X3, the advantages of it, the hormonal responses. Also, we get into a little bit of diet as well. So it's a great episode with Dr. John. I'm excited to have him on, and I know you will too. So enjoy the interview, and thanks so much for listening. All right. Well, Brian Grin here at the Get Lean, Eat Clean podcast. And today my guest is Dr. Jaquish. And I'm excited to have him on here. He's the inventor of OsteoStrong Devices, which is a bone density building medical device, and also invented the X3, which we'll talk quite a bit about. And that's variable resistance device that helps build muscle like 3 times faster than lifting weights, and I'm proof of that. Also, he just co-authored a book, Weightlifting is a Waste of Time, and so is cardio. So we got a lot to get to. Before I share my experience, Dr. John, why don't we were just talking off recording, and you are, the face of the brand. Why is that? Why didn't you just hire someone to just be your model for X3?
That's a great question. I love the question. Yeah, it would have been so much easier to just hire somebody who's already in shape, and then they say like, oh, I use X3, which is like what basically everybody does, like some fitness product, and they get somebody who's already in shape, hop on it, and they go, oh yeah, this thing's great. But of course, they're endorsing like a couple of different things, so it doesn't even, anyone that's really following them is like, they don't use that.
Right.
And also they didn't build their body that way. And so I thought I was going to find somebody and really inspire them to just use X3 exclusively and get even further. But the problem was, without overwhelming proof, like I had scientific proof, but the fitness people I would be talking to, the models, they don't read research. It's unfair. Right. To assume that they're going to be able to understand the same level I understood it. In fact, it took me like 2 years as I was putting it together to really like convince myself, because you have data in front of you that says weightlifting is a terrible stimulus for muscle growth, and there's probably a better approach. I developed a better approach, and I'm sitting there scratching my head like, what if I'm misreading my own data? Right?
Yeah.
Like, there are people who do an analysis, but they did the analysis wrong, and then the analysis shows X, but really the answer is not X. So, or the data disproves X. So I thought, okay, like, and then who knows? You get somebody who they say they're going to do X3, and then they post on Instagram and doing like pull-ups, and everyone's like, oh, there it is. It's because of the pull-ups. That's why that guy's in shape. I love that.
Right.
It's like so stupid. Like you see somebody who's in incredible shape, they completely transform because of X3, and then they go out and they're like rock climbing one day just for fun, and it's like, it's because of rock climbing that guy's in great shape. Like, oh, these idiots. So by the way, rock climbing
is
will not get you strong. It's a great fun sport.
Difficult.
Yeah, difficult. Well,
yeah.
the secret to being a great rock climber is weighing like 120
Being,
pounds.
I was just gonna say being light, right?
Oh yeah. Like I mean, like I used to enjoy. I used to belong to a rock gym. It was all indoor rock climbing. It was in Chicago.
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say I'm in Chicago, so I thought
Okay.
I know. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and you
Chicago.
probably know the place up North Shore.
Okay.
Yeah. So y- anyway,
So
I knew everybody would just screw it up and
so
be
how
a
many
bad
years?
representation.
What was the progress? So like I know you were telling me you weighed what and how many and you know you used it obviously exclusively for how many years
The
and
day I got the prototype in my hand, so I designed it, I sent it off to the guys who were going to do the CAD work. So I mean, I did the cocktail napkin drawing,
mm,
and Henry, who's my co-author on the book,
mm-hmm.
his second name on it, he did the real, the real CAD drawing. And everyone I mentioned this to, they were like, "It can't be that simple." And I'm like, "Yeah, it is. It's really elegant, really simple. It's going to grow more muscle. I swear, like I've got all the data."
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't have all the data like compiled. Like I didn't write the book first.
Right.
So then when everybody, like when I got the prototype in my hands, I thought, okay, I want to use it because I
Yeah.
want to, like see really like how far I can get with this thing. Because also X3 challenges what is genetically possible. We always hear about genetic limitations. The genetic limitations have to do with the strength that's being applied through the tendinous and ligamentous tissue and pain perception.
Mm-hmm.
That's what like your, like the limit of your genetics is. Well, we just threw that all out the window
Right.
because you don't have any joint discomfort. Joints are no longer a limitation. It is purely muscle. And also, muscle and muscle size and muscle power are what causes, like it's what the muscle can contract against that causes the tendons and ligaments to grow.
Right.
So it's one comes before the other. It's sort of like a cascade of effects. But if the
So,
musculature is not there, the tendons and ligaments won't grow. So back to me, I
yeah.
was 190 pounds and chubby. So I was carrying like an extra 20 pounds of body fat. So like no visible abdominals. You can see the before and after pictures of me on the website.
Yeah.
I think they're at the very bottom of the main page. And so I thought like I kind of have to be the guy here. I have to be the model.
Yeah.
And of course, I put a lot of pressure on me because I hadn't had a six pack since high school.
Yeah.
Right.
You need to
And
get
I was
results.
40. And it was like, okay,
You were
so
40?
I'm just,
Okay.
yeah, I was 40, 3 years ago. 4 years ago now. I'm 44. I just turned 44. So there was like just like a lot of question marks there. Like, what if I can't do it? But then
Right.
it's just like, of course I can do it. Like anybody can fucking do it. So I'm just doing it.
And so you went on the journey. How long did you do it for yourself, with the prototype until you started to put it into production? And then you're like, oh, this works. Let's get this thing going.
About a year and a half. So
Okay.
I had already put on so I put on 30 pounds of muscle in the first year. And then in the first 2 years, which the product had already launched a little bit, which was kind of my next benchmark,
Mm-hmm.
I had gained another 15, so 45 pounds of muscle and lost 16 pounds of body fat. So it was really funny because when I launched the product, people were like, and they were like trying to compliment me, but this is not the kind of compliment you want. They're like, it's nice that this company chose like a chubby guy to represent the, like an out of shape guy to represent the product because it's just very refreshing that it's not some fitness model. And I was like, what? Like I'm getting better every day. Like, come on,
Right.
like knock that off. But they meant it complimentary, so I was just like, thanks, question mark. But then later on, it was like all of a sudden, because I was making videos every week, all of a sudden all the comments were like, this guy's definitely on steroids. So I went from being fat to being on steroids. So there's no in between apparently. But that's how jealous people roll.
And did you have any history like of just regular weightlifting before that?
20 years.
Yeah. Okay, that's me.
Did hardly anything for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, basically, like in 20 years of lifting weights, like I think I went through puberty. I think that was my secret
Well,
of like not being a skinny kid.
right. I
Yeah,
mean,
I mean,
I was
like,
just
I
telling.
played rugby in undergrad,
Okay.
but I was an outside center, which is like a wide receiver. So I only weighed like 160 pounds on the field. I was just fast.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say like when the quarantine started, I wanted something that I could do at home, and I got the X3, and I've been lifting weights for over 20 years. I've just been in health and wellness for a long time. Um, and I was like, I never really got into bands. I was like, God, I don't know. And then it took me a little while to get like to change over and decide that, wow, this is something that really can get you results. It was like people were asking me like, how are you getting bigger? And part of it, I started to eat more meat, good question, good high quality grass fed, grass finished meat that I was just having delivered to the house.
There's no getting away from it.
No,
Like if
no,
you're gonna grow, you need what makes you grow, which is not kale.
right. I know. I got away from the salads, and then with the X3, it was like I was having elbow issues because I couldn't even bench 135 after a while, and I was like, I can't even do my upper body. So my lower body was like so far past my upper body. It was like a little frustrating. I was like, well, I like having a big lower, bigger lower body. I was like, I need to start doing upper body more. And with the bands and, variable resistance, which we'll talk about today, so much less strain on the joints, and I'm able to get through it.
Well, it's not bands. You're not doing band training. That's not what X3 is.
Right.
Bands are part of it,
Mhm.
but if you use some of the banding that's included with X3 without the bar, you'll break your wrist.
True. Right.
Like, because it is so much more powerful than the bands you would find at like Walmart or something.
Right. Yes. Yeah. And just so people know, there comes with us like how big that's Olympic bar. It's maybe how many 18 inches or something like that. Yeah, there it is. Okay. Which is a great, it's a great apparatus to use, and it also turns with the band. So yes, I agree. You don't want to use bands without the bar. The only times I use it is on the pec crossover. I do that exercise. I know you show that on the website.
Yeah,
I'll,
you don't use the bar, but I mean that's
right.
really like a fine grain movement.
Right. Sort of a burnout. Well, you're burning out on all this stuff, obviously.
Right. It's the problem is with the pectorals, which is especially important to men. I mean, just from an aesthetic standpoint,
Yeah.
this is not a full pectoral contraction.
Mm-hmm.
This is. I
Okay.
mean, like the humerus bone is brought across the body by the pectoral. So, I mean, if you line your elbow up with your sternum, really reach across your body, you can feel a tight contraction of the pectoral. You don't really get that in chest press. You're not really getting to the end. So I like stacking those two movements together. I started
doing a back
pec growth after that.
Yeah, doing a back, that talk about a burn. Yeah, back to back. And my splits, I know you're with your splits, you're doing it 6 days a week, push and pull. And I do it. I'm doing lower upper splits. I just got into that rhythm of doing upper body one day, lower body the next day. But the great thing is like what I noticed is, building muscle, not being sore. I always came from sort of the old school approach of you had to be sore to build muscle. And that's not true. So it's been a good learning experience for me, and much better than conventional lifting, that's for sure. Why don't we talk about variable resistance? Maybe give an explanation of why it's superior. I'm sure it's a common question you get, but I'm sure people ask, well, why is it superior to just lifting weights?
Because you have variable capacity. So what I discovered in my bone density research is you can handle X amount of weight, like let's say chest press type activity.
Mm-hmm.
You can handle X amount of weight when it's right on your chest.
Right.
When you're pushing away from yourself, when you're just short of full extension, not at full extension, just short of full extension.
Okay.
You can handle 7 times the amount of force. So no matter what you're doing, if you're not using variable resistance, you're not stimulating hardly anything at all.
Right, because you can't even get that amount off your
Right.
chest.
So
right.
Right. If it's heavy at the bottom, then it's
You got
light
no
at
shot.
the top.
Right.
Yeah, and you're not really contracting anything. Like you're using very small amount of muscle. So when you go to fatigue, you're really just overload. I'm going to quote Peter Attia here, and this is why he doesn't believe in weight training. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to get on his show for some strange reason. I quote the guy everywhere, and it's brilliant what he said. He says the problem with weight training is it overloads joints and underloads muscle. The muscle is capable of more, and the joints are not capable of more at all, which is why, like when kids start lifting or when inexperienced novices start lifting, they're not loading the joint. Like the joint is stronger than the muscle, but as soon as there's matching there, that the muscle becomes as strong as the joint, progress stops.
Hmm.
Which is why you see people go to the gym for, the first 2 or 3 months they grow. They might put on, I'm talking, when you first start exercising, you might put on 5, 6 pounds of muscle, and you see guys go to the gym for years. I mean, like 10 years, and all they got was the gains in the first couple months. And they
Right.
just keep repeating the same things or even mixing up their program, and still nothing is happening. Nothing. That's why.
Right. And maybe speak on this was something that took me a little while to get used to because I'm used to going to the gym for an hour and a half and doing 3 to 4 sets of things.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think for me I do a little bit of a warm up and then I do 1 to 2 sets. I know you preach on doing 1 set with the X3, and I know
The only one you don't want to do a second
I
one.
don't want to do a second one. Okay.
You're too. It takes you to a much deeper level of exhaustion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe explain to the listeners and viewers regarding the 1 set and why.
Well, when you see somebody with a suntan, you don't ask them how many sets do you do in the sun to get a tan, right?
They just
Like
get it.
that would be a weird question.
Right.
What do you mean sets? You just go out in the sun. So, and there's only one exposure. So usually when, 4th of July, the first time you're kind of like out in the sun for the summer, or maybe it's before that, depending on where you live,
Mm,
you go out with no sunblock on, or maybe just on your face or something like that. And then as soon as you turn a little pink, then you're like, okay, give me the sunblock. And, or you go inside or whatever. So it's a very brief stimulus. And in fact, it could be sunny in December and we could walk around, without our shirts on, and we're not going to get a tan because the light is not intense enough. So the most intense stimulus in the shortest period of time is going to create the greatest response of the body. And that's true of all adaptation. So like the fact that weightlifters do more than 1 set tells you what you need to know. It tells you that weightlifting sucks. Why would you need more than one stimulus? Every other stimulus is just one shot.
right.
Right.
Okay, that makes sense. And the cool thing with the X3 is like you can't come up with an excuse not to do it, right? Like if you don't have 10 minutes or whatever, 15 minutes if it takes throughout the day, and you have no excuses because really you're building muscle, you're not getting sore, so you recover. I know it takes like 36 hours give or take, so that's why you do sort of the push pull, so you have that day and a half to recover, right?
Mm.
And then you're back at it every other day. So there's no excuses. I think a lot of people use being sore, right, as an excuse not to go back to the gym, and time, right? But those excuses, that's why I like it so much, those excuses are out the door, because you can't use either of them when,
Right.
when you're using it.
Yeah.
Why don't we talk a little bit about the hormonal responses? I think a lot of people on this podcast that are listening, middle-aged. The whole idea with the podcast is middle-aged men and women looking to get their bodies back. So
Yeah.
this is perfect for the X3. Perhaps explain maybe the hormonal, some of the research regarding the hormonal responses through variable resistance.
So only meta-analysis that I've ever written, and I wrote it with same co-author with Henry Alkire.
Okay.
When we look at stabilization firing, So I kept seeing something in research, and no one had really put this together yet. So we did a meta-analysis looking at 23 different data sets
Mm-hmm.
and how stabilization firing would upregulate growth hormone. And it certainly does, and it does in all age groups.
Right.
And so part of the reason that we have trouble with body fat, well, other than the fact that the food we're eating is just complete trash.
Did you say the food? I'm sorry.
The food we're eating is complete
Yeah,
trash.
we'll get into food.
Yeah. Other than that, like, we don't move the way we should. We don't stabilize our bodies. We walk around on pavement. Everything is perfectly flat.
Right.
But our feet have a similar complexity to our hands. Our toes are meant to grip uneven surfaces. But we don't walk like that. So we lose a lot of stabilization firing that our bodies are supposed to have going on.
Mm-hmm.
You know, one day you spend running around on the beach and you're barefoot, like, your back feels great if you have any back pain,
Mm-hmm.
but your core and your hamstrings and your calves are so sore.
Calves, yeah.
It's because that's the way your body is supposed to engage with the earth. So just being barefoot and walking around on concrete will probably give you a different set of problems.
Right.
That won't do anything. That's actually stupid.
Right.
But yeah, if you're walking around in dirt or sand, yeah, like, it's starting to activate. So we're missing a lot of the stimuli. So in the meta-analysis, we determined that stabilization firing has a huge influence on the pulses of growth hormone. And if you add loading to that, so if you're holding weight while you're going through stabilization firing, you have a tremendous upregulation, 2,600%, which
Wow.
is, yeah, like, that's just crazy high of what you can get out of growth hormone.
Yeah, and testosterone as well, right?
Yeah. The heavier you go, the more testosterone. There's a lot of trainers and gurus and guys who, I don't know, just make stuff up or just repeat what they heard somewhere with fitness. Unfortunately, there is absolutely no way to get away from heavy if you want to develop your body. You have to go as heavy as possible. Now, people don't like hearing that because they think, oh, that means risk.
Mm-hmm.
That means, I'm not willing to tolerate risk, so I guess, like, I'll never develop. No. X3 is an approach to giving the body incredible forces, but where you can handle them. So you get the testosterone benefit without the risks of typical heavy lifting.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a lot of it, like, for example, like the deadlift, right? It's most, like, with the X3, what I love about doing deadlifts with it, it's probably my favorite exercise, is the end range, right? When you're almost in full extension, that's when it's most difficult, and that's where you're the strongest, right? And then sort of on the down, and all the way at the bottom, where you're putting it, perhaps when you're coming down, it gets easier and easier, so less strain on the joints, and you're using the muscle, at the top where it's most needed, right?
Yep.
What's your favorite exercise on the X3? If you had to pick one.
Favorite. These are like my children, man. Pick one.
You gotta if you had to pick one.
I really like the deadlift, especially the way I instruct people to do the deadlift, which is really engage the trapezius.
Mm-hmm.
My trapezius muscles are ridiculously huge. Like I have a 20-inch neck. Like, so when I go, like, I can't wear a dress shirt unless it's custom made for me, which I think is pretty cool. Like, I have a big neck as Mike Tyson. That's cool. I like that.
Okay, so I will say the deadlift is great. The front squat, I was just telling you, probably for me the most difficult. I think mainly because of just the core stabilization and firing.
Mm-hmm.
From
See that's, you understand the stabilization firing, right. And you're getting leaner while you do that. That's one of the deadlift and the front squat, and that's the only way to do a squat. Like,
The
I
front
mean,
squat. Yeah.
I always love when trainers tell me that squats are functional. I'm like, really? At what other point in your life do you stack weights on the back of your neck
Right.
and then go up and down with them? Really? You think that's functional, huh? No, that's a good way to really hurt yourself.
Right. I've been,
I think back squats are just beyond stupid.
yeah. Yeah. I haven't done one in a long time. And I used to try to do front squats in the gym, and it was difficult, with the free weights, but with the X3, it's like,
Mhm.
I would say it's like a safer version, better version of doing
Way
it.
safer. Right, right.
God forbid you got to put it down. So you put it down, you're using, when you're doing, real weights,
Mhm.
that's when stuff can happen. You lose a little
Have you
balance.
switched to single leg yet?
Have I done, yes, I do single leg
Yeah.
too. Yeah.
Single leg is that's another thing. Trainers just their head explodes when I say this, but it's like a squat. I mean, front or back. I mean, back has got its own reasons why it's not smart. But the front squat, like no one should squat on 2 feet. Like unless you're a kangaroo.
Right.
If you're human, you walk on 1 foot at a time or run on 1 foot at a time. So you should train one leg at a time
For sure.
and focus all your body's resources, have them forced into that one quadricep and one glute and the stabilizing firing associated with that. Like we have to balance our bodies while we run. Like, because somebody will be like, well, you're unilaterally loading and that's not good. Bullshit. Like then we shouldn't run, right? We should just hop.
Right. Yeah, no, it's definitely,
Yeah. So dumb. Yeah.
the single leg is great. And usually I'll do deadlift, front squat, and then single leg, back to back to back. And then that's enough to cash out. Um, let's talk. Well, let's hit on cardio. I will say this: I've never been a big cardio fan. So I've never been a big runner. If I do stuff that's just maybe a little different. I've done Muay Thai for years and years and years, which I love because I'm just not a runner. Um,
Mhm.
Maybe talk about a little bit about. I know you mentioned in your book regarding cardio and how it stimulates cortisol and things like that, and how for most people, let's just say chronic cardio is a waste of time, especially if you want to have fat loss.
So if you want to be a great runner, you got to run. But that's not why most people do cardio. They do cardio because they think they're going to lose weight from it. They're going to drop body fat. And it is the opposite of what is happening. Your body is actually preserving your body fat and sacrificing muscle when you do cardio. So you actually lose muscle and you protect your body fat. So you stay as fat as possible, as long as possible. Who wants that?
I mean,
Like that's not the, like, and there's 40 years of research. Like if you talk to any sports scientist, they'll be like, oh yeah, of course, like cardio, don't do that.
right.
But then, we'll say, well, why does the fitness industry recommend it still? They'll start laughing and they'll be like, oh, the fitness industry is just,
Because they want to sell treadmills.
they want to sell treadmills. The equipment manufacturers want to sell treadmills. The gyms just want to give people what they think they want. Like, if you go to sign up at a gym and they go, we do it differently because we want you to get results, and everything you thought was the right thing for fitness isn't, nobody would sign up at that gym because people aren't there to learn.
Right.
They're there to do something, which they have a preconceived idea. So it's really hard to like break that model in people's heads and say, no, well, everything you've been told is wrong. It's a tough sell.
Yeah. And I always say, would you rather look like a marathon runner or like, the guys that are doing the 40-yard dash, like body wise, it's not even
right.
not even close.
And most people don't even have an idea. They think, oh no, runners have beautiful bodies. And then you tell them, Google marathon runner and hit Google images. Yeah. It's just, everyone looks like
they're
like
malnourished.
Yeah. They're in a Turkish prison.
Let's talk a little bit about optimizing nutrition, because I'm a big proponent of intermittent fasting. I know you are as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so let's talk about perhaps maybe your routine. I know you're big into fasting. In the book, it talks about it, and maybe some carb timing and protein amount and the sources and things like that.
Which do you want me to answer first?
Why don't we start with let's start with the fasting. What's your routine right now? I know you've.
I'm always running experiments.
I know you were doing 2 days there for a while. Are you still there, or are you changing it up?
Yeah. I did 3 days for a while. I've done some dry fasts.
How were that?
Well, they're as comfortable as you can imagine they would be, but very effective. Yeah. I mean, just like you devastate body fat. You get rid of body fat so quick in a dry
with the
fast.
dry fast. Yeah. Would you do a day, 2 days?
I did 72 hours, no food, no water. Yeah.
How'd you feel at the end? Were you just felt good? Like, I mean, I would advise anyone listening, like, you want to sort of ease your way into this. I mean, you've been probably how long?
This is the last step.
This is
the final level. Like,
right.
You feel lousy kind of right away.
Right.
Because water does kind of fill you up.
Right.
And
keeps it busy at least.
And being well hydrated keeps some things working in a fairly optimal way, even when you're metabolizing ketones and using your body fat as fuel. Mm-hmm. But dry fast, everything suffers a little bit, and your body's still pulling water out of body fat. So you really only get so dehydrated, and then you get into the state of where you're pulling moisture out of body fat, which destroys the cells. So, I mean, it's awesome, but
it's the last step to give it a go.
It is the last
It's
step.
Cool to say you've done it. Honestly, I've done a day dry fast, but that's been it. And then, so routinely, what are you doing right now? Are you doing 1 meal every 2 days? Is that what your routine is right now?
Oh yeah, for a while I was doing that. That's not right now. No.
Okay.
I'm just about ready. I've been running another experiment.
Oh. All right.
Which is more focused on like 1 meal a day.
Nice.
But at a calorie deficit and a protein surplus.
Okay. Because
calorie deficit, it's never described quite right in what it does, and it's also the idea, like, there's plenty of documentation that you lose both fat and muscle in calorie deficit, but that's incorrect, or an oversimplification. I always tell people oversimplification is another word for wrong.
So what's your 1 meal?
Yeah, it's just steak or red meat, ground beef.
Okay, so straight protein, any carbs?
Just right after the workout. Like within 30 minutes. Yeah.
So do you do your workout right before you break your fast?
Yes.
Nice.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. So definitely workout fasted, leaves all the blood available to go into musculature and deliver the sarcoplasmic benefit. What happened, the stimulus to this was I started dating a new girl who super fit. So I thought she'd be completely down with everything that was in the book. And
she better like your book, right?
Yeah, well, she's a physical therapist. She likes to argue about certain points. But of course, actually, no, she doesn't like to argue because she never wins. And I'm not one of those guys that's like, oh yeah, sweetheart. No, that's not me. I'm not here to please anybody except myself. That's not totally true of the whole relationship, though.
Got to give and take.
Yeah. So but when somebody says this is, I don't agree with this part of your book, I'm going for their fucking throat. Like, oh really? Mm-hmm. Well, it's not my opinion; it is science. And so, explain what's wrong with this. I mean, I'm all over them. Mm-hmm. So it's like, but basically, the punchline is she just didn't really want to fast. She says, "Just I don't like how it feels. Mm-hmm. Like I get hungry, right?" And she's not really fat adapted.
Okay, so she's never done it.
No, but she has a 6-pack, so it's not like
Right.
She's never going to get in shape. Like she's a highly competitive college cheerleader. Like she's just dynamite. Like she can do anything physically, like a total acrobat.
Right.
So I'm like, okay.
So no fasting for her.
Right. So I really changed my nutrition to, well, I got her to do one meal a day. She can do one meal a day. And then the rest of the protein is made up really by the deficit is Fortagen. And so then, in the one meal, like if there's a little bit of carbohydrate there, it's really not that big of a deal because it doesn't matter. 12 hours later, you're in a ketosis anyway.
Right.
And especially at a deficit, it's probably earlier because I'm not eating the whole day's worth of calories in that one meal. So yeah, I mean, like I've just kind of like jokingly called this nutrition program like cheeseburgers and Fortagen because we can,
or ribeye.
or really, well, right, but
Right.
like she's also different than me in that she doesn't want to eat it like only steakhouses, which like I walk into a steakhouse in Northern California and people are like, Dr. Jaquish, how you doing? Right.
They know you. Yeah. Right.
Right. And then she's like, I feel like Thai tonight. And I remember the first time she said that, I was like, like Thai what? Like, I don't.
Thai food. Yeah. Right.
Yeah, right. I mean, Thai food is, it's really
A lot of noodles, pad
like,
Thai. I used to love
right.
pad Thai. I will say I used to love pad Thai. I don't eat it anymore though. But
right, and they never put enough chicken in it. You're like, this is
right.
like we're expecting to give this to a rabbit. Like this is nothing.
Right. It's like 80% noodles.
Right. Yeah.
So
like if you get it and you eat around the noodles, you realize you hardly ate anything.
right. Exactly. No, it's still full. The plate's full. Let's talk. Okay. So mainly steak.
Well, I mean, that's the experiment I'm running right now, and I'm documenting it well because I'm seeing just how much we can get out of bacterial fermentation with the Fortagen.
Right.
And like I am continuing to build muscle and getting leaner. And I'm not going through the really uncomfortable fasts.
So just so people know, Fortagen is a product from your company, which I do have. It's a protein replacement. It's like 5 times more anabolic than standard protein sources, right? Yeah. And it's like fermented, correct?
Yeah, it's from bacterial fermentation, yeah.
And you're taking this, so you're working out, you're taking this, and then you're waiting a little bit to eat your meal?
Yeah, you want to wait 2 hours after a meal before having a dose of Fortagen, but you only need to wait 30 minutes after Fortagen before you can eat the meal because Fortagen digests very fast. So I'll have 4 doses of Fortagen throughout the day.
Okay, so you're taking it throughout the day, not just after the workout.
Like literally, it's in this cup right now with my X3 guys.
Oh, nice. That's a cool cup. Okay, so you're taking Fortagen throughout the day, which I think, what is it, per serving? 4 calories or something?
4 calories. Now, like a lot of people get so upset. They're like, there's no way you're getting, so there's 10 grams of amino acids, which metabolize as efficiently as 50 grams of a less efficient protein. So it's a massive amount of value of protein. Because like ultimately, when you find out that whey protein is only 18% usable by the body and everything else goes through you as waste, well, when you do 50 grams of like a 50 gram protein shake with whey protein, well, you really just got 9 grams of usable protein. So
this is fermented protein, is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just rotting material where bacteria takes a hold of it and processes it, and then after the bacteria dies off, you refine it, and it's the worst tasting thing unless it's flavored, which it is. So people are always like, "Oh, I only want the unflavored kind," and I'm like, "You will vomit." No, we're not making them. Sorry.
Do you manufacture that here in the States?
In the States, yeah, like at a pharma quality facility, like the highest standards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is
It
that,
actually used to be a cancer treatment. It still is actually. So I talked to the guys who developed the cancer protocol,
wow.
and it was designed to keep muscle from wasting when you're in chemotherapy.
Hmm.
Because that's really what kills you in like when somebody's like they kind of
Sarcopenia.
died of chemo. Yeah, yeah, it's because their body just fell apart.
Right.
Well, body falling apart is really muscle falling apart, and
Right.
so they just didn't have the ability to maintain protein synthesis. They couldn't hold down any food, so it was like we're going to come up with the intention of the scientists who created the cancer protocol was we need the most efficient protein to just get in the system and create the maximum amount of muscle protein synthesis
Hmm.
to keep from wasting. Well, it's like, okay, I tweaked it a little bit with these guys and I hired them. I paid them a lot of money. And they
Did
did.
they come to you or you came to them for that
I
product?
came to them.
Yeah.
It was really weird. Like they thought that they think the fitness industry is a joke. Like they're like, I want nothing to do with it. And I'm like, I'll handle everything. Like, like I'm not asking for a partnership here. I'm asking for like your help.
Hmm.
We create this thing and all the marketing is my problem. And they're like, okay, well, good luck. Like people in fitness are idiots. And they are correct. But
Quick
there
question
still is a way. Yeah.
for Fortagen, because I have it myself. Can I put that? I've had it with I've had it with water. Can I put it in anything else and make it like a shake out of it, or do you think that'll sort of just um, you won't get the benefits? Or you,
You don't want to add it to anything with protein in it.
okay, so
Because
like
then that kind of screws up the ratio of what you're consuming, and you may not be getting the benefits. But like I've heard people say they want to put it in orange juice. I've also heard people put sea salt in it.
hmm. I
Which
mean, I don't mind the taste. It's not even that. I was just wondering if I wanted to just put it with almond milk and I don't know, make
don't
some.
eat almond milk.
Don't have almond. Okay,
No,
even if
no.
it's sprouted
That's
almond.
oxalates. That's
What if it's
liquid
sprouted?
inflammation. No, no. Throw away your almond
What
milk.
about goat milk?
That's fine.
Okay, I'll stick with. I've been having goat
Now,
milk
unless
lately.
you have like a casein allergy or something. I have a casein allergy, so I can't do goat milk.
Okay,
But I mean,
okay, so
yeah,
maybe I'll put it with.
goat milk's fine. No, I mean like you can milk a goat. Try and milk an almond for me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I hear.
I've
I
never
mean,
seen tits on an almond.
yeah, I hear you. Let's talk. Let's talk. I'm a big morning routine guy. I'm curious. What's your morning routine like?
I'm gonna disappoint you.
No, don't tell me
I,
you sleep
I
in. No.
no, it's not that. It's I'm over the last 10 years with OsteoStrong, with all the scientific presentations. I used to do trips where I would leave San Francisco, fly to Chicago, had an office in Chicago, stay there for a couple of days, fly to London, had an office there, spent some time in London, a couple of days, fly to Moscow, where we had a very big distributor, fly from Moscow to Osaka, Japan for a
Mhm.
couple of days,
A
and
lot
then
of
back to
travel.
San Francisco, literally around the world. You would wake up and walk right into the wall because you had no idea where you were, no idea what time it was. So, I mean, do I really have a morning routine? No.
Well,
Just wake up. I like showering at night, so I can just wake up, splash water in my face, and get dressed and just walk out the door.
nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. So it's like my wits are about me at night, and then when I wake up in the morning, like sometimes I'm like, I get in like the cab in some foreign country, and they're like, "Where are you going?" And I'm like, "I don't know." And I'm like thumbing through my email, like trying to figure out like what address I need to give the cab driver. Not my favorite. Now, coronavirus has kind of ended all of that.
I was gonna say you can't be traveling that much now, are you?
No, no.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I would, there could be more of a routine now. But of course, I have a new girlfriend, so that also throws routines off a bit.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, yeah.
And okay, so what about like who I noticed with the book, um, weightlifting is a waste of time book that you just came out with. Who's your biggest influence in your life? I know was that book dedicated to you? Is that your dad?
It was dedicated to my father. Yeah. I dedicated my first book to my mother, and they're both huge influences on my life. I'm really lucky
Yeah.
to have great parents, and they gave me kind of my artistic side. My mother's a fashion designer. My father was a NASA scientist, put the lunar rover, a little car on the moon. Actually, 3 of them. And they all worked.
Wow.
Yeah, like I'm really proud of my parents. They're cool. And yeah. So, but I mean, biggest influences now, I will say, my mom will probably see this and she'll be unhappy. I get a lot of bad advice from my parents too.
Right. Sometimes you
you
got to
gotta
figure it out.
determine what's, and sometimes like they had me when they were a little older, and they're talking about like, decisions that were made around World War II, and I'm like this is not the same.
Right.
And they'll be like, yeah, we probably don't know what we're talking about, which I think is funny because I got to talk them into that.
Right.
Got to get them to really see like you are giving me probably good advice for like 1950, like not for today.
Do they live in Chicago or where are they?
No, they live in Northern California.
Oh, okay. So you're close.
Near Lake Tahoe.
Okay. And we talked about your daily eating and fasting schedule, 1 meal a day. What would you say if you had a cheat food? If you had to do a cheat food, what would it be?
This is like so against my DNA.
I know.
Hey,
I'm a clean eater too, but everyone's got a cheat food.
When I started dating this girl, I was like, oh, she never has cheat days because I'm just like looking at her and she's just like perfect.
Right.
And then it was like, late at night one night and she goes, let's go to Insomnia Cookies.
Oh.
And there's one like right downstairs.
Yeah, that's
I'm trouble. Like, you want late night cookies? And I'm like, that goes against like everything I tell people. And she's like, yeah, but just have like 1 or 2.
She's trying to get you.
Yeah, I mean, that's just like, oh, just try a little bit of this heroin. Like, no.
Right.
And so I realized like, okay, I'm gonna have to make some adjustments to my lifestyle because
So you're insinuating that insomnia cookies would be a cheat food for you?
Unfortunately.
Hey, that's all right. You know what? I always say to people, it's not necessarily about the cheat food. It's about getting right back on the wagon and just living a clean lifestyle.
I tell you what, my real cheat food is, because insomnia cookies, like they're good. I mean, as far as cookies go, but cookies were never my thing.
Right.
So my mother's from Belgium, and like a real Belgian waffle, like not a waffle like you get anywhere in the United States.
Right.
Heavy, like really heavy dough. They're not really overly sweet, and they have like powdered sugar on the top of them.
That's it.
I could, like, when I'm in Belgium, when I'm walking down the street, I will get, and now I can, use it to amplify my glycogen replacement for a workout. So I think the last time I was in Belgium, I had my X3, in the carrying case on my back. And I like did a workout in front. I wish somebody had taken a picture of this. Did a workout in front of one of these waffle carts in like the middle of Brussels. It was like a cold day, but I was like sweating like hell because, it's a hard workout.
Right.
And then I had 2 Belgian waffles. It was awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everything went right into muscle glycogen. I could feel it. Like everything was just swelling. I looked like I doubled in size after my workout was over.
One of the questions I like to ask guests on the show is, what would be your one tip to get your, let's say you're middle-aged, I'm 40, we're both middle-aged. What would be your one tip?
By the way, but you're right.
What's that?
I hate that, by the way.
I know. Time flies. I'll tell you. Let me tell you, I don't feel 40. So, and I know you don't feel 44. I feel
better than I did when I was 18.
Right.
I have no joint pain. I feel just dynamite.
Yeah. Well, that's the key, right? It's just a number, right? It's just a number. What would be like your one tip that you would give someone if they wanted to get their bodies back? And I know we talked X3. So let's say disregard X3, but what would be another tip maybe you'd give someone if they wanted to sort of get back into what they were maybe 10 years ago?
I would tell them to read The Carnivore Diet.
Hmm.
That's the best book by Dr. Sean Baker.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean that will
So
put
pretty
you
much,
on a path where there's no way you won't be lean by following the advice in that book. And it's easy.
right.
I mean, it's just so easy. And it's basically still what I'm doing with my burgers and Fortagen. I mean, Baker wouldn't eat the bun, but because like I said, this girl is really inspiring me to come up with something. Is my point with bringing her up is that she has no trouble with hard exercise. Like, she's an athlete,
right.
very high level one, and she can make nutritional sacrifices, but a lot of people are just unwilling to do the fasting thing, and they're unwilling to go 100% carnivore. So I'm looking at what kind of results I can get from sort of a carnivore-ish
Ish.
type nutrition and a deficit and a fasting benefit, and all of that held up by sort of the bulk of the nutrition coming from Fortagen. And it makes life so much easier, and people will actually follow it. There's the guy who's the CEO of OsteoStrong, his name's Kyle Zagrodzky.
Mm-hmm.
He says all the time, and he says it about nutrition or exercise. What's the best nutrition program? People will say, well, I don't know what. He goes, the one you'll follow.
Mm.
Because ultimately, if you won't follow it, like what's in this book, I mean, to be honest, it's hard to follow. Like I give different levels.
Right.
Like, if you can eat one, like I'd say one meal a day in there, but like the most extreme stuff that I talk about in there, yeah, I think maybe 1 or 2% of the population will give that a shot. I think most other people will be like, I'm going to stay in the beginner area because all this other stuff sounds like it sucks. And going 3 days with no food and water, for example, that sucks.
Right.
I can't sugarcoat it. It sucks. Now, you completely transform in 3 days, but it still sucks.
Right. And you got to, like with fasting, like anything, like you got to build yourself up to that point. But once you get fat adapted, right, it's definitely attainable. I don't do a ton of extended fasts, but every once in a while I'll do it just to mix it up. But I agree. And that what I hear about from a lot of guests is making protein the main source of your meal. Quality protein, obviously.
Yeah, it should really be the only thing you're going for. It's the only macro I would ever count. Like, I need to clear 250 grams of protein because I weigh 240 pounds.
Okay, so about a gram per pound is what you
gram per pound of body weight. That's the rule. And I always want to shoot a little bit over.
Yeah.
It's way better than being under.
Right.
So yeah, but the Fortagen, so with 4 doses, it makes up for 200 grams of protein. So I really only need to eat like an 8-ounce burger or like a steak or something.
Yeah.
I'm cooking steaks for my parents tonight. My mom was laying the meat out, and usually it's like never enough because it doesn't matter how many times I tell her how much I was eating. It was like I was eating like 2.5 pounds, 3 pounds of meat in one meal. By the way, you don't feel great after that either.
That's a lot.
Like that last steak, you're like, this is not good anymore. Like the first bite, especially after like one meal a day or even 48 hours of no food, you're like, okay, like whatever, I can do this, and you like it, like it's steak, and everybody likes steak, but at the end of the meal, it's like
you've had enough.
I'm really tired of eating the steak. Yeah.
When you say, because I don't do full I do carnivore-ish. I'll add in, I like avocado. Is there certain carbs that you like and that you tolerate, that you add in?
No.
Okay.
Kind of hate them all.
Do you really?
Yeah, they're garbage.
Okay.
Carbs exist in nature to get you fat, and that's why they appear at the end of summer, at the end of the hot season. It's to get you fat for the winter. It's to help you survive. But we don't really need that anymore. We have buildings, so I mean, the whole carb timing thing with the workout to replace glycogen
Mm-hmm.
has to do with general energy. It has to do with stretching out the muscles so you can make room for hyperplasia, uh, which is like a miracle discovery, mostly made by Professor Jose Antonio out of Florida State.
Mm-hmm.
That guy should probably win a Nobel Prize, honestly,
Yeah.
for like really documenting and his I believe it was his PhD thesis really put together. It was, he didn't call it a meta-analysis, but he just put together such a great argument about stretching, like forcing more hydration into the muscle and then stretching, and then showing that you have a hyperplasia benefit. I mean, that's permanent muscle growth. Like
Right.
that is amazing. And he's never really been recognized
For
to
that.
the general public. He's been recognized by scientists many times, but like I really like that guy to get more credit for that, because that's just amazing.
Yeah. So I guess the moral of the story is have protein the main source of your meals.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And implement intermittent fasting. And if you want to build muscle, use the X3. Am I
That's right.
missing anything?
No, it's pretty simple. Like the lifestyle is easy, and also, it's funny. Like you talked about who your podcast audience is. Um, when we first launched the product, we targeted people who cared about strength, and even though we were warned not to do so
Mhm.
uh, by other companies, they're just like the fitness community, they cannot handle science. If you
Right.
make a scientific argument, you'll never get anywhere, because these people, what they said was these people are stupid. And yeah, the level of intelligence in the average fitness fan is very low. And I think also the patience. They just see something that they think sounds too good to be true, and even if the science is there, they won't read it. They won't even try.
Right.
So it was difficult, but we pivoted immediately. I'm talking about days after we launched our ads to
Mhm.
target busy professionals,
Yeah.
and it was like sales were through the roof immediately. Because a busy professional is looking to optimize their life, like everything they do. If you can cut the time it takes to brush their teeth in half, they're appreciative, and
Mhm.
they will spend money, or and learn about why they can get away with that.
Yeah. That
Perfect.
makes complete sense to target them because really it takes the excuses out of it. They don't have any, 10 minutes a day, 15 minutes a day.
Right? They want to be fit,
Right.
but they might not have time to get to a gym.
Right.
They might do a quick day trip somewhere, and they don't want to, well, let's say a 2-day trip,
Yeah.
and they don't even want to bring workout clothes with them because just too much room in their bag.
Right.
So, I mean, like I'm wearing jeans and dress shoes today.
And,
That's what I'm going to work out in today.
right.
Who cares? Like right? I'm at the office.
Right.
And
Yeah, no, you don't need much. Do it in your hotel room. For travel, that's a no-brainer. Actually, just to let you know, my dad and my brother-in-law, I had them both get one. So,
Mhm.
because I was like, for my dad too, he's lifted his whole life and he's had some joint issues. And I'm like, give it a go. I'm telling you, I've been using it for 6 months. It's been great. So, um, yeah, it's something I'm going to keep telling people to keep to use it, because if you want to get max results in less time, who doesn't want that?
Right.
No brainer.
Yep.
Well, I appreciate it. I'm glad I got you on. I started using this and then decided to start a podcast, and now I got you on. So I really appreciate you coming on and sharing some knowledge with everyone. And I know they'll get great benefits by using it. So where can people find you? I know obviously X3 is probably the best place, right?
I created a landing page so I didn't have to list off 5 things of where
Right.
you can find me. Just go to drj.com.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Dr.
DOCTOR, the letter J.
Dr. J.
.com.
That's simple, right?
Yeah. Yeah, you can get to my Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, anything.
Okay, drj.com. Well, thanks, Dr. Jaquish. I appreciate it.
Thank you. All right, yeah, this is good.
Thanks for listening to the Get Lean, Eat Clean podcast. I understand there are millions of other podcasts out there, and you've chosen to listen to mine, and I appreciate that. Check out the show notes at briangrin.com for everything that was mentioned in this episode. Feel free to subscribe to the podcast and share it with a friend or family member that's looking to get their body back to what it once was. Thanks again, and have a great day.